Alex. Welcome back to Automate All the Things. We're so happy to have you back.
Hey everyone. Thank you,
Um,
Aaron.
yeah, no, I'm super excited. I haven't been streaming in a couple weeks. I'm happy that things still work, that folks are still watching. So, welcome, Mark, Sean, Rock and Roll CEO, Penny, Colleen. We've got some new folks, got some folks coming back. Um, so, how does it feel to be
Nice.
back at the second time to Automate All Things? You were so popular your first time. People wanted you back to complete our workflow. So, how does it feel?
It's super nice. For real. I'm always excited to see that you can share something and people actually find it interesting. Like hey, actually there's people, so it's very nice. I'm super happy to be here again.
Yeah, and truly a huge thanks for you for coming back. And I feel like I've sort of forced your arm a little bit by announcing that you were going to come back on the stream, and appreciate you allowing us to do
No,
that.
it was fine. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
So, for folks who didn't watch part one, essentially what we did was um, fetch live data in Webflow, and what we did was on page load. So what that means is it's not a CMS item. We're not updating information in Webflow itself. It's actually when someone lands on a page, we went to a third party and said, what is the latest about this number? And the one that we're integrating is
Mhm.
number of subscribers for a newsletter, so that when someone signs up, we instantly see that number update for that new subscriber. There were some issues with what we built, Alex. How about walking us through what were some of the issues or things that folks should think about, and what we're going to go through today to truly make this production ready?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I think that's something. It's nice. So the idea is that we want to fetch some live data that's living somewhere on a server, and we want to display that on a Waffle side.
Mhm.
Actually, I think that we should start with one question that we had on the previous stream,
Sure.
which was, why are not you just using the Waffle CMS? Like,
Right.
why are not you just doing a cron job and you're just updating the Waffle CMS and then just using the
Hmm.
native UI? So for this case, it's something that it's very simple. I would say that it's mostly just for the sake of building and demonstrating
Hmm.
how would we do this. But fetching live data, it's not about just using one single
Hmm.
value for something. It could be anything for entire data tables. It could be something like dynamically loading items and then
Hmm.
populating something in the items. It could be anything
Yeah.
with that. So the example that we're doing is just like a very minimum
Right.
example, and that, as you said, it's just going to an API. It's fetching the total subscribers that you have
Hmm.
on ConvertKit, I think it was,
Yep.
and then just showing it on the page in Webflow. So it's very interesting. And the last week we actually already set up an endpoint for that. So
Hmm.
we went uh, a low code approach. So not full code by building our own API from scratch, but not no, no code where you just use something like Zapier
Hmm.
or Integromat and you just use the UI and that's it. So we went middle ground and using PyDream.
Hmm.
And the reason why I love PyDream is because it's low code. It allows you to expand things by using code.
Right.
I believe that actually what we're doing today, it's mostly no code, the
Right.
way that we're using PipeDream. But still, on the previous stream, we already showed it that PipeDream allows you to modify everything and to just hook into every single step that you're doing. So it's like a Zapier
Hmm.
on steroids.
Right.
I like to call it like that. Um, and what we did was we set up that endpoint, which was every single time that we called that endpoint, it
Hmm.
was fetching ConvertKit on the background
Right.
and then was returning the data from ConvertKit.
Right.
There were some reasons for that, and the main reason is because ConvertKit it's a private
Hmm.
API. It's not meant for public usage. It requires private keys, and also it has rate limits. Okay, cool effect. Nice.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I needed to stand.
Yeah.
My I get fidgety. I get so excited at the beginning of streams. I get fidgety. So,
Yeah. I mean, I have one arm like this all
oh
the time.
really? Oh my God, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
all the time, always. Yeah. So if you see me doing weird stuff like this, it's because I always have something doing, always going on something with my
um,
hands.
so quick, I think we're kind of abstracting those steps, and I'm happy to recap as we join in. So let me know in the chat if you weren't here for the first stream.
Hmm.
Let me know in the chat. So there were kind of three things that we had identified, right? Caching, right? Domain restriction, and error handling as like three potential
Yep.
issues with the way we were kind of setting it up before. So I think that was a great summary. So let's actually jump into what we did 2 weeks ago or
Yep.
3 weeks ago. I don't remember. Time is but a construct. But let's jump in here and let's talk through those three things so folks kind of get a bearing of where we're going. So I am here on the kind of Webflow landing page. And essentially what we had done was, put a little bit of code into my newsletter template. Let's go into settings. This code right here. Now we're not going to jump into this code, but what were some of the risks or the issues that we had identified that we're going to work on over the next 45 minutes, trying
Yep.
to make this production ready.
Yeah. So well, the code we're doing right now, it's fetching the pipe dream endpoint that we created.
Right. This.
And then with the data that's being returned from that endpoint, we were just querying the element that it's supposed to be showing these value on the page, and then just updating
Right.
that element.
This right here.
So there were a couple things that we could improve.
Mm-hmm.
The first one, it's actually that the code is a little bit repeated because
Okay.
you're getting the element twice. You basically have the same code for updating the
Right. Right
text
here.
content
Right
of the
here.
element. So we
Yeah.
can improve that.
Okay.
But that's not an issue at all. It just it's repeated code. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is that we're currently just assuming that the endpoint always returns a success response,
Right
so
here.
to A200.
Yeah.
Correct. But that could not be the case. There
Mm-hmm.
could be things that happen. Could be that pipe dream just goes down for whatever reason. There's some downtime.
Mm-hmm.
Could be that pipe dream suddenly the workflow that you created it's breaking because the ConvertKit API has changed.
Right.
I mean, it could happen a lot of stuff. And in that case, we are not handling those potential errors.
Right.
We
Got it.
should do it. For this specific case, it's so simple that it actually would not matter at all. But
Mm-hmm.
we want to show people what actually the best practices for handling this.
Yeah.
And the third thing is that, and this is not directly here for the JavaScript code, but it's for correct, for PyDream. It's that every single time that the users are calling the endpoint, we are fetching ConvertKit.
Right.
So and that makes an entire round trip. So PipeDream, ConvertKit, PipeDream, and Webflow.
Right.
And we can skip that ConvertKit if we just cache the data. So
Right.
it's all about performance and also not abusing the rate limits of ConvertKit, because
Right.
ConvertKit could be angry
So
about that. And yeah.
let me kind of walk through all those in like the workflow. So someone goes to this page, right? What happens
Mhm.
at that moment is we're like, hey, Pipe Dream, we run some code. We say, hey, Pipe
Mhm.
Dream, could you tell us the number of subscribers? Pipe Dream goes to ConvertKit. ConvertKit is like, this is the number of subscribers, goes back to Pipe Dream. Pipe Dream says, here's the response from ConvertKit. We don't check whether that response is accurate, right? And then we show
Mhm.
that response. And what you're saying is that we should have a step in between where we say, hey, why do we need to do this every time someone visits? Can we do it
Yep.
like just once every 10 minutes or every minute even, or even 10 seconds? But maybe we have 30 people, like, I do
Mhm.
a stream and it's like really, really good, right? And everyone wants to watch it at once. We might fail because PipeDream is like ConvertKit can't handle that many API
Yep.
calls.
Yep.
So, okay, those sound good. Anything else we're going to kind of think about today or try to cover to make this
The,
production ready?
yeah, the last thing was it just for convenience. It's nothing.
Hmm.
That it's mandatory, but it would be great if people could not call your API from other sites that it's
Right.
not yours.
Got it.
So in
So,
that case, we're also going to put a restriction on the endpoint
mhm.
for only the origin that it's your domain.
Understood. Okay, so making sure that that initial call, that initial like visitor, it's not like, you know, Linda from another place being like, I wonder how many subscriber Aaron has because I looked at the code under the page, right? But making sure that the initial call to Pipedream comes from a vetted or, the
Correct.
origin of that call is, from uh, um, the right place. So in order of, I know there's some that are conveniences and there's some that are necessary, and I'm sure in the chat people would love a part 3 around the conveniences. What would you say are the most crucial things we need to have to call a third party via API that we should start with, to be like, these are the most important things that we need to have?
I mean, the first one it's handling the errors on your
Okay.
code because if I mean for this case it's very simple snippet. It's just fetching the data and then updating the text content.
Right.
And if it fails, we actually don't care that much at
Okay.
all. But imagine that you had like an application that depends on that data, and you don't put error handling in that application, and the endpoint fails, and suddenly the entire application just breaks.
Right. Okay. So
So in that case, we want to handle that.
okay, so I imagine let's maybe start with the error handling, and
Yeah.
let's try to do it as simple as possible, and then we'll refactor all of the code at the end. I know, Alex, you look at you look at this and you look at this, and I'm sure your developer eyes bleed a little, but I think for the purposes of trying to get through as
Yeah,
examples, let's start with just
it's
and
fine. Yeah.
I'm gonna run this again, right? Just to remind people of what this did, right? So let's console.log response here. And this is stack
You
blitz, which is
you want to console log the convert kit variable probably.
oh, okay, yeah, let's do both. Let's do both.
Okay.
Convert kit,
You will
right?
have
So
to put it
yeah,
right after.
yeah.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, cool, cool,
And you
cool.
missed a capital K.
Damn,
Convert kit.
I've been on vacation. I have no
Yeah.
coded for the last 2 weeks. Okay. And so let me just
Nice.
walk people through what this does, right? So if you weren't here last time, this snippet of this stack blitz is just a way to get a website up and running that mimics our Webflow website without a lot of the
Mhm.
complexity. And here we're essentially go to Pipedream. Pipedream is a little workflow builder here,
Mhm.
and this returns the ConvertKit API without showing any API key. It's just go here, return the number of subscribers, and we have a response which gives us a status, right? This is the API call itself to Pipedream. And then we have sub count, which is what we are looking, the live data we are looking to update. And then we actually don't care. We just say, okay, update the subscriber count, the
Mhm.
content of this this class, this
Yeah, it's a
ID.
text. It's ID. It's an
ID.
ID of a. It's a development. But it's an ID. Yep.
Yeah. And then just update with convertkit.subcount. So
Mhm.
how would you check whether the API call was successful and that we have the data that we need to update the information? Would you put both? Or would you just say, okay, do we have subcount? If so, go ahead and update that information. Or
Mhm.
do we need to check whether the response of the API was successful?
Yeah. So a shorthand for doing this is just basically because the response that we're getting, that variable that's called response,
Mm-hmm.
if for any reason that response was not successful,
Mm-hmm.
this means that it does not carry the data that we want,
Right.
the data string that we want. So the moment that we call that JSON method, so that
Right
response, that
here.
JSON at line 14, yep,
Yeah.
correct. That it's gonna fail because the
Mm.
JSON method, it's the response is not going to contain any serializable data that can be converted to JSON,
Right.
and this will throw an error, right? And at
Yeah.
this point, this entire function will just break.
Okay.
So the quickest thing that you can do for this is just wrap the entire code in a try catch that is called in JavaScript, which basically checks if there's any error happening inside the block. So you would put first a try, and you would open a bracket like that. Yep, nice. And then just correct, and then just put a catch like that. Catch, and between braces, I don't know, brackets,
Yeah.
braces. What's the
Yeah.
word for that?
Brackets. Yeah. Curly brackets is my favorite
Curly
way.
brackets is that, but
Yeah.
for the functions, that what you use for opening and closing the arguments, what's that? The name,
Oh,
the round
parentheses.
bracket, parentheses. That's the word. Sorry. So after the catch, you want to put parentheses, error, correct, but before the opening curly brace. You
So
want to
like,
put the error, correct, and
so
all, and
walk me
then
through maybe, so maybe
yeah,
just, so what this is going to do, it's going to try this right here, all of this. It's going to do the API
actually
call.
everything. Not
Yeah.
only this, but everything, including the document,
Oh, it's going to run everything. It's going to run all of this.
everything.
Okay. So,
For this particular example, yes, we'll get to this in a second. I'll explain why.
okay. And then it's going to check whether the output of that is an error, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what do we want it to do if it is an error?
In this case, not much, because actually, if there's an error, we cannot do much. We could do, for example,
Right,
imagine
right,
that we wanted to show a number always.
right,
For this specific case, it doesn't matter because we could just have the number already
right.
in the static element.
Exactly.
So if this fails, it would not do anything. But
Right.
let's picture another situation where it's actually a little bit more complex.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine that data needs to be there, and if the data fails, we need to say something to the user like,
Right.
"Hey, this actually failed."
Yeah.
Just error message, whatever. In that case, we would put that inside the catch statement. So
Oh,
the
I
catch
see.
statement would help us to run any logic that we want for displaying the error that happened, or for
Right.
returning a different set of data, whatever.
Yeah.
Correct. In this case, I think that we can just console log the error,
Exactly.
and this
That's,
would be for debugging.
yeah.
And
So let's
that would
do
be
console.
fine.
There was an error. Aaron, call Alex to fix. I feel like that's appropriate.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
And then,
So, you actually, the way that this is currently running, you will not be able to access the ConvertKit variable for the following lines. So you
right.
want to put the following lines also inside the try
Got it.
block.
Okay. Right
Correct.
here. So
Correct.
in the try block, like right here.
In the try block. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then we can.
And if you save this, it will just format everything. It will be.
Oh, right. It formats for me. Thank God. Wow.
Yeah.
That's so much
Nice.
better. Okay. And let's console log just to make sure that, okay, we see that it works. So I just want to walk people through this one more time. So this is essentially saying, okay, our function get subscriber, which is the only thing we're calling. We're saying start get subscriber, comes here. It's going to try everything between this. And it's going to check whether there's an error in some of this. And what you're saying is that this is not actually going to throw an error. It's just going to say,
we can just sorry, go ahead. I thought that you were saying something different. Go
yeah,
ahead.
so essentially this is going to return 400. It's going to say like, oh, the API call was unsuccessful, but that's not actually an error. That's just like, hey, the API call was, maybe you wanted an unsuccessful API call, which is okay. But what you're saying is that maybe this will be unsuccessful if this is a 400, if there's no response. So could we test it with, let's change response equal empty or something? Like, how could we test?
Well, you can just,
yeah.
well, actually, you already got it, but you could just call a different endpoint, something random.
Oh, right. Let's call like this.
Blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Okay. And if I save this, let me save, and then how do I refresh? See, I don't get anything. Oh, because I'm not console logging. I should see console log. There was an error.
Yep. Maybe actually the response for that it's valid. I don't know.
Oh, success. Oh, this is valid. Because maybe this is a real endpoint.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, maybe I fell on a. Let's
Put
try.
something even random, more random. Yeah, something crazy. You could just remove
Okay,
something
no. So I think pipe
there.
dream it's always going to return something. So what if we just fetch whatever? How about that?
Yeah, whatever.
There we
Yeah,
go.
that's fine.
Okay, so
Yeah,
essentially we're fetching
nice.
not even a URL, and we see that there was an error. And this is where I call you to say, okay, we've handled that error. We are not updating the text, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's do
Nice.
this, right? And then boom. Okay, we're back. So now we are handling that error. So let's save this. Again, probably not like the, the perfect way of handling this in the sense of we're not outputting a alternative response,
Mm-hmm.
right? But let's remember that in our situation, the fallback is this 3K plus. So it's not going to show the exact amount, but what it will show is still something that's useful to the user. But as you mentioned, maybe you want to have a pop-up or to fetch another
Yeah.
API, right? That's where you would run it in this catch error.
Yep. Correct.
Okay, cool. So that was number one. Now,
Yep.
I feel like that's confetti. I feel like, whatever, man. I haven't streamed in a couple
Yay.
weeks.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Yay.
So there was a request in the comments where could we make like the confetti fill up the screen and then have like someone vacuum it. So if you are good at animation, reach out to me.
I'm not.
I would love to build that. That'd be fantastic. Okay.
Nice.
So that was the first kind of big error in no matter what pipe dream returns, we're gonna have at least a fallback, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which before we had no kind of error catching. What would you say is the next big kind of thing we need to think about in making sure that this fetch of live information is production ready?
So the next step, it's caching the data. So if we go back to the presentation, right now, every single time that we're calling this endpoint,
Mm-hmm.
we are calling also in the background the ConvertKit API.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of, if there was a lot of traffic on this side, we would essentially be abusing the ConvertKit API, and they probably would just limit you. They would just block you.
Could you explain
So we
caching
want
to
to avoid
someone
that.
who, has never heard of it? How would you,
Yep.
what is caching? I know a lot of people hear about it, but
Yeah.
what is actually caching?
Yeah. So caching applies not only for endpoints, but also for loading assets in any way.
Mm-hmm.
You probably heard it, for example, when using a CDN or things like that that improves performance thanks to caching. Caching it's just taking a piece of data and just instead of so it's imagine that there's the client who wants to retrieve some data. There's the server, and then there's that data. The data could come from anywhere. So if there was no caching at all, the process would be that the client it's calling the server, and the server it's getting the data, and the data and the server is returning the data after fetching it.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could even be just the browser. I mean, it could
Right.
not even the server. It could just be the browser
Right.
requesting an HTML page.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, caching it means is just taking that piece of data and saying for a period of time, which could be 1 hour, 1 day, 1 month, 1 year, whatever, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter. For that specific amount of time, I don't want to be reaching again to the original source of this data,
Mm-hmm.
but instead I'll just save a copy for me,
Right.
which is faster to access. And I'll just every time that I get these a request for this data, if the data is still valid, so the data has not expired,
Mm-hmm.
say the expiry date, in that case, I'll return this data for you,
Right.
which improves a lot for performance and also for consumption. It's what was the word for that? The
It's effort.
when I come up with it,
No, but
yeah,
it's
yeah, just
essentially saying for things that don't change very often or that change on a regular cadence or that we can assume change on a regular
correct.
cadence, could we just save a copy? So I like to use the example of like, I know your name is Alex, but maybe I asked Joe what your name was the first time. I'm not going to go back to Joe and be like, Joe, what is your employee's name? And he's like, it's Alex. You've asked me 8 times. Why don't you just write it down on a piece of paper so you remember it, right? Which is a very poor analogy. But this idea
No,
that
it is. It's actually great.
okay, well, you can take it. We can run with that one. So essentially, we're saying instead of Pipe Dream, doing okay, let me go into the edit mode of like I have the URL. I'm going to ConvertKit. I'm running some code here. Could we just save what the latest subscriber count was and update it every minute? That way, if like 500 people come to my website, I'm okay with them seeing the same subscriber count for that minute, right? I don't need to have actual real-time data. And where could we create this cache? Where can we have this little piece of paper of saving the number of subscribers that we can then be like, oh, this is static, it's faster.
Yep. So in our case, we're going to use something that is called data stores that you can already see that on the left of your screen. Yep. And this is a feature that PipeDream offers, which is basically just a key value store.
Right.
Which summarizing, it's just a way of storing values with a key. So you can reference them and access them.
So let's call this ConvertKit.
Or ConvertKit, whatever. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. So this is a database where we
could call it the database, kind of.
Yeah, ConvertKit makes sense, right? So it's a data store of ConvertKit information. And essentially, we're going to say there are keys, which are variables. Would you say those are variables to which we're going to assign a certain value? In our case, we're going to say our subscriber count is 500, it's 600, and we're going to update that number every minute, every 10 seconds.
Yep, that's correct.
So
just let me
go ahead.
say that this is not the only way that you can cache data. So don't think that now caching data means using data stores in PipeDream and that's it.
No.
So caching data could be implemented in many different ways. It all depends on the actual platform that you're using.
Right.
So if you're running a Node.js server, you probably just want to get that data and just put it in memory.
Yep.
Or maybe you have like an external database, something that is very fast to access, like Redis or Cloudflare Workers, and you want to get that data from the edge. Or there are many things that you could do for caching that data. So I mean, I don't want to confuse people.
I think what's funny is that you're mentioning, I think, a lot of databases that I know what they are, right? But that most people here are like, I've never used Redis or PostgreSQL or whatever.
It's fine.
So essentially, your data store could be Airtable, right? You can say Airtable every 10 minutes, update the subscriber count, right, in a record, and that's your data store. Essentially, it's something that is like updated on a less frequent basis than like the person is going to your website and we're calling that API. And it's convenient that PipeDream offers it, but you're totally right that you can use whatever data, Excel sheet if you want, right? As long as it's whatever you want.
It always makes sense that accessing the cache data it's faster than reaching the original data.
That's true.
So for example, Airtable would probably not be a good option because you're actually just putting a new
layer. Yeah, absolutely.
But I think it's a good analogy. It's just it could be anywhere.
So I'm going to call it the same thing we have here, which is subcount. Right?
_s.
Yeah. So
sorry.
Lowercase.
Lowercase that.
And then value is should I just do empty?
It would be a number. For now, would a number be 0, for example?
Oh, right. I need to give it. Let's say 300. Let's just give it a basic value for now. Okay, so now we need to update this number at a regular cadence to get the latest, and this is what we're gonna then query. So how would you go about doing that?
Yep. I would say that we have 2 approaches for this. We currently have a workflow that is already working. So it's fetching the ConvertKit API, and then it's returning the data from ConvertKit.
Yeah.
We could do an approach that it's basically adding the caching in this workflow.
Right.
And saying, for example, I just call the ConvertKit API, and I'm going to store this data, and I'm going to return it to the user. But then the next user that comes to this endpoint, it's going to get the cache version.
Right.
In this case, it would require a little bit more work for this.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that let's go for the easiest route, which is
Right.
another one, and would be that this workflow will just, instead of calling ConvertKit, the ConvertKit API every single time, will just reach out to the store that you just created,
Okay.
and then we will create a separate workflow that it will be a cron job.
Right.
Cron job, it's basically just a workflow that can run every
And
whatever time,
yeah,
yeah. And that cron job, it's gonna be the one who calls the ConvertKit API and who updates the store.
got it. So should we
And yeah,
start?
let's go for that one.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So essentially, we're going to say here, always go to the store, and then we're going to update the data
Mhm.
store every hour, every minute, whatever we want. So should we
Yep.
start with that separate workflow, or should we just maybe statically get this working with the data store, make
I
sure that
would
the rest of our workflow works, and then create that separate workflow?
I would create the other workflow, and for the main reason that you can then just copy and paste what you already have here
Oh,
in the
okay.
ConvertKit step,
Perfect. That makes sense.
before removing it. Yeah.
Okay. So leave without deploying. Let's create a new workflow.
Mhm.
And you're saying on a schedule, on a cron.
Yep.
Was that right? Yeah, schedule. We want every hour, let's say. Does that mean every hour? That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's imagine this was,
Nice.
at the top of the hour.
Yeah.
We are
Nice.
going to go to the
All the
store.
Well, no, we'll go to the ConvertKit API first, and we'll
Oh, right,
call the
right. Of
ConvertKit
course.
API.
ConvertKit.
And this is the moment that we actually copy and paste what
Oh,
we
right,
already
right.
did.
Yeah. So let me go back into Pipedream. Let's remember get sub count. Let's remember what we did last time. So let's edit this. We're going to go to, we did ConvertKit. Let's copy paste this little code right here.
Nice.
We wanted to list subscribers.
No, we wanted to use any
Oh,
ConvertKit
right.
API.
Yeah, of course. Of course. There we go. Copy pasting that. We have a ConvertKit account. There we go. Let's test this. And what we're hoping is that this returns, see, and this has taken a while, which is both worrying, but also the reason why we're doing this. We have total subscribers. So
nice.
That is what we want to put into the data store. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So what is our so here? What are we doing here?
Yeah. So now next step, and we're just picking the store to data stores probably, and then we want to add or update a single record. Nice, that one.
ConvertKit. The key is sub count.
Yeah.
And
nice.
We want to put step 2, not the trigger. We want ConvertKit step, and we want total subscribers.
Nice.
Okay, so just kind of walking back here. Every hour, this is going to go to ConvertKit, get the subscriber count, go to the data store, update that static sub count with the latest subscriber count. So let's test this. Okay, and now we see that sub count is 3501. So let's deploy this.
Actually, now if you check the data store, it should be already updated.
Perfect.
Yay.
Yay, nice. Okay, so now we're saying instead of, we're now doing that every hour, but you can do it every minute. I think the limit for ConvertKit API was maybe 5 per second. So you can even do it every second, right? It doesn't really matter as long as that is less frequent than the limit. And ideally, you have more visitors than the limit, which, gives value to this workflow. And I'm hoping one day to have more than 5 people visit my website per second. We are very far away from that. Okay, so now what's untitled? Let's rename this. Let's be good at this. This is get ConvertKit to store. So yeah, continue. Okay, cool. So it's saving. Good. So now, I didn't save it. I got to deploy.
Maybe you need to refresh the page.
Let me check. Yeah, there we go. Get ConvertKit to store, and then get sub count. This is now what we want to do, where we're removing ConvertKit.
Yep. Can we try something?
Sure, of course. This is what we're
Just
here
for the
for.
sake of for the sake of the demonstration,
Yeah.
what we could do is we could calculate how long does it take for calling this endpoint before updating it, and then comparing to the new version where we actually
Sure.
instead of calling the ConvertKit API, we call
How do I
the
check how long it takes to get the response?
it's super easy. If we
Okay.
go back to the JavaScript code, no,
JavaScript. Yeah, right here.
in Stackplex, yeah.
Yeah.
And just before the line 12,
Line 12.
so
Yeah, right here.
just before that,
Yeah.
let's create a new line and let's say console.time,
Mm-hmm.
correct? And just open and just put a name, whatever. So just put it open a string and just put something like time, whatever. It just
Yeah.
start time. And then after the response, let's put the same line.
So
After
right
the response, just after the
just
response.
after here. After here.
Yeah. And instead of calling time, let's say time end. So time, no, sorry. You keep the same identifier, but you call the function with time end. This
Okay,
time
got it.
end,
Yeah.
that one. Correct.
Okay.
And this, what's going to say it's how long did it take them to make this API call? So we can just refresh the page and try it.
Oh, I refreshed the wrong thing, but that's okay. It should still work. And then I should see that in the console.
Yes.
I'm not console.logging anything.
No,
Let me
I
refresh.
think it's, yeah. I think it was console time. 1 second. Time. Console.
So while you're doing that, Anthony, I'm
Yeah.
gonna. So there's a question from Anthony, which is PipeDream like a CMS API driven software? I'm not sure what you mean, but essentially, PipeDream is Zapier for developers, right? So that ability to call different services without standing up, your own cron jobs or your own kind of serverless functions. But essentially, if you understand Zapier, you will very much understand PipeDream. And so we're just using that to hide the API key initially, but now we're also using it for caching and also using it for other stuff like domain restriction. So go ahead, Alex.
Nice. I think that you just need to remove the start time string and just leave it empty. The start, what you wrote inside, yeah, just
like that.
Just go ahead. Yeah, correct. You just
Okay.
remove that.
Let's refresh.
And supposedly it should work, and it's not.
I'm not seeing
I don't know
any
why.
console.time. Let's check console.time.
Should be. Maybe we cannot use it in stack blades without, which I think would be weird.
Let me just check console.log. We're not console.log.
Yeah.
Test. And then okay, no, console is working.
Oh, could it be?
Could
you put the cons? No.
No.
No, but that's weird. Could you put the console.log after the response call?
Yeah, it's all there.
Oh, that's really weird. Okay. Trying these myself.
This is what I need the Jeopardy,
Yeah.
Log time. Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well.
Yeah,
Can we console
it's supposed to be console log. Now I'm okay, let's try.
See, I see the function time, but I can't. Yeah, it's not console.time. No, I'm not getting it.
If it's not working, then I'll just give up. Sorry.
Okay, right, that's okay. That's totally okay. We'll add it in the comments on how to do it. Cool. So where were we? We want to retrieve from the cache. We assume that it's faster to call a static database than it is to call a live API endpoint. So essentially here, instead of going to ConvertKit, we want to go to the data store. Right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so data stores. And we want to get record. Is that it? Yeah.
Get a record.
Key sub count. No, do not create a new record. So let's test that. Let's see the output. Okay, so we've got 3571.
Nice.
And that is the steps.get record records or create. This we don't need anymore, but
we can remove it.
okay, let's remove it. You're super confident. I was going to keep it just in case. So let's delete that step. And then in the code here, where we're saying is, return sub count, we're now going to say don't return sub count, return steps dot get record or create dot return value. Okay, let's test that. So Xavi is recommending console.time or console.time log. So maybe we'll cover it at the end if we have the time. So this is returning sub count 3571. Okay. So how are we?
We're confident, yeah.
Okay, let's deploy this.
And now, you know what? Actually, PyDream lets you check how long did it take every request.
Oh, really? Where?
I think when you inspect them here, you can see this list of
447 milliseconds.
So if we go to just all requests,
let's go to all 578. So we've saved ourselves 150 milliseconds.
Yeah, something like that.
That's pretty good. Oh, we have right here. So we have it right here. That makes sense. Let me just make sure that this is the last one. This isn't even the last one, I think, because this one is a ConvertKit one.
Let's try.
Let's refresh this, because now should be deployed. Right now it's running.
Yep.
Oh, it's longer.
Try it again, because I think that we got an error there. Oh
no, it worked.
Nope. Okay, now I'll this will be a fail.
That's okay.
So this is supposed to be accessing the data stores from PyDream. What could be something that happens is that currently the data stores access it's actually slow.
Right, and that's okay.
I don't know. I have not tested it, but
I think
I would keep it. I would do a few runs first before.
I think the other part is that even if it's speed was not our issue was potentially overloading the API. Right?
Correct.
So we have to remember that ultimately speed was one of the potential benefits, but the main benefit is that now we have no chance of overloading, this call, because there's no limit to the amount of times we could call this store, which there is one with the ConvertKit API. And I always worry about the risk of having growing traffic
visitors.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to show people that this works. So let's mess around. Can I edit? Let's make this 200 just to show that
you need to accept it.
Okay. 200. So now if we go here, this worked 200, right? So this is actually fetching from the data store. And if I go back to workflows and get ConvertKit to store and I run it, let's test workflow. I need also loading music. I need to soundscape automate all the things, Okay, and then if we refresh here. Oh no, did I break it? No, there we go. Okay. And then it returns 3571. So that's another confetti. Congratulations to us. All right. It feels good to do that after a couple of weeks of break.
Nice.
Amazing. Okay. So the third and last thing, what was the third? It was
this one is just for convenience, but we want to avoid other websites.
Right.
For this case, it's super stupid. I mean, who would want to show your subscriber count?
Especially that I show it on the page, right? I do tell people what it is.
Yeah, but there could be something like, I don't know, imagine something like cryptocurrency stock data, whatever, something that you're showing on your website, but you don't want other websites to be hooking into your server and showing that data themselves.
Yeah, I think an example of this, maybe you are showing a specific user some information that is, unique to them, maybe their tasks or their money, And if someone ever gets a hold of that URL that you're calling, they may be able to get people's information that they shouldn't. Uh, as an example, I know it's not perfect, but that could be an
Yeah.
example.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do we check
Let's other that. Yeah.
who is making the call so that we can
Mm-hmm.
say, oh, if it's not you, if it's not me,
Mm-hmm.
don't run, don't return the call.
Yep. So every time that we are calling an endpoint, our browser is sending some metadata with it. So not only we're sending that request with whatever payload we wanted to send.
So this one right
The head
here.
correct. The browser is also appending a bunch of headers
Right.
in your request,
Right.
and one of the headers it's called the origin, as you can see it there.
So this is
Correct.
the who called the endpoint, what browser or what server went to this endpoint, and you're essentially saying this
Mhm.
origin allows
Correct.
us to say who is making this call.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And what we want to do is, if this origin it's not your website,
Right.
we want to just return an error. We don't want to return the data.
Right.
In
So
this case, usually if you were coding this, you would do it manually. You would just throw an error and return a different response.
right.
But in the case of PipeDream, they have a cool feature that it's called filters. And you actually knew it before me, so that was nice.
I'm a Zapier.
So,
Everything I do in Zapier, I assume I can do in
uh-huh.
PipeDream, and those if statements. I think they also call them filter in Zapier,
Mm,
where you can say if a response from a previous step is not what I want it to be, don't continue on this workflow. So
mhm.
we want to continue
And
workflow on condition. So check whether it's the right origin, and
I
then
think it would be easier if you just end it.
Oh, okay, okay. Let's
Because if it's not matching the domain, you just
okay.
end it and that's it.
Oh, filters. Filters is what I'm looking for here. End workflow on condition. Okay, so I want a text condition,
Mhm.
right? So here we want to check whether the origin, and the origin should be I'm going to do my test website, right? So we're going to do a full deploy, and whether the origin can I do like a what contains? So it needs to contain
Yes, contain
a
that.
contain
Correct. The
just
domain.
AATT. I feel like that's
Yeah,
enough.
example.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So whether it's my production or my test website, I can say, where was I? Here. Okay. So here, workflow end contains. So if
Mhm.
value to evaluate is going to be origin, select
Nice.
AATT. So here it would case sensitive is false. Okay, so here it should
Mhm.
actually end the workflow.
Correct. Correct. It met the condition and ended the workflow.
Okay, okay. But it says
Oh,
continue.
for continuing workflow. Okay.
So
Can we see what was the value of it?
inputs.
Stablix compare contains AATT, and it says that it's actually working.
Yeah, that's weird.
Mhm.
So I wonder if it's let's try it. I think we can see whether it's like an error in the sense of they mean that it was successful, but that it would end the workflow. Here, our
Hmm.
expectation is that it doesn't return anything. No, it seems to
It does.
it does. So that is
Mhm.
not working.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, this is,
Actually, I think that we had this same issue yesterday when we were testing some stuff.
really.
So perhaps we're just setting this up incorrectly.
Okay.
Let's try to see. Um,
Okay.
we want to end the workflow.
Can we enter a custom expression?
Yes, although I don't know what's the naming and the syntax for that in here.
Okay, let's give this select path, and they have condition. Oh, right. I
custom
need
expression.
contains. We had this issue yesterday
Yes, correct.
because we
But
don't
I
know what.
think that it should be fine with the default options. We're just not setting it up correctly.
Okay.
So this is a text, and we want to what conditions can you contains, does not contain, matches exactly, doesn't match exactly, and it's with. Can we try just for testing the matches exactly?
Okay.
Matches exactly. Yes.
And let's actually just put the string. Let's put the string itself. How about that? Let's put this.
Mm, Yes, we could try that.
Like,
Enter it here from the previous tip to evaluate. Uh-huh.
yeah. And
And
then, yeah.
oh, you know what? Maybe you need to
Oh,
wrap it.
string.
What?
Okay, let's
Let's
try
try it.
that. Yeah, we can try this. Test. No, still says continue workflow.
Ah, come on. Okay.
Okay, maybe there's no here. Let's do this. Let's try a few
Mm,
things.
but
No, it's still giving us continue. Success.
could you put it case sensitive?
No, still.
Okay.
And then
No.
let's do this. We're going to try all the things. No.
It's still returning an error, and this is weird.
This is weird. Do you feel
Yeah.
confident? Could we just put some custom code here instead?
Yes, we could.
Let's try that. No, still.
Okay. We could let's just try it ourselves.
Okay.
So instead of doing this filter and just sorry because of this, I am I didn't plan this.
That's okay.
Let's actually just run some custom code, which is the same, which is what I love from PipeDream.
So node.
Yeah. No, yeah, just run custom code. You already have that. Yeah, correct. Run no code. Yes.
Okay.
So in that case, what we want to do is we want to check. Um, let's open in line 4. Let's open if steps dot the previous step. Actually, it should be the braces,
Oh,
not
right.
curly braces, but just
Parentheses.
braces. Yes.
Steps. Dot
Parentheses.
trigger.
Sorry. Trigger
Dot
dot event. No,
event. Dot.
event.
What was it?
Headers.
Headers. Dot origin. Okay.
Correct. Does not just
Contains.
dot. No, I would say includes
Includes.
dot. No, string
Let's see what we have.
includes.
Search.
No, includes.
But we don't have includes. It doesn't give us to it
No, we
as a
don't.
method.
Okay, can we see
Match?
splash? No. I would like to try still includes
Okay.
because it's just string dot includes. Just
Okay.
let's try it. Includes and open them braces, parentheses, sorry, AATT. But then at the beginning of the if, you need to negate that because we want to throw an error when, yes, correct. And then we open and close the curly braces, and in here we need to throw an error. And now I need to know exactly how to throw an error here in PipeDream. But
Nice.
for now, you can just throw an error. No, instead of returning an error, just
error.
say throw. Just throw and say new the space new error. Yep, capitalized, and just open and close parentheses.
Okay, let's give that a try.
Right, that's it. Let's test it. Yep, that failed.
Okay.
Okay, and
so
let's try it now.
If there's an error, will PipeDream stop running?
Correct. Yes, it just stops.
Okay. Okay, let's give this a try. Okay, so this is success if this doesn't work. Right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Nice.
and if it works in Webflow.
There was an error. Perfect. So
nice.
It does return an error. So that's nice. So let's copy paste this. Right? Let's go to Webflow.
Yep. And while you do that, I'll just remember everyone that we're copying and pasting directly because it's convenient for us. But there are many other ways of deploying JavaScript code
Right.
for Webflow. And actually, if you let me, we just did a stream about that
Yeah.
last Friday with Joe and in the FinSuite channel. So if you want to check
Yeah.
it out, just go to the YouTube channel of FinSuite, and you will see a stream that we talk about deploying JavaScript code.
Yeah. So Colleen, if you can retrieve it and get, drop that in the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, hey, you're right, Anthony. This is the first time I've been happy about the error. So let's save this. Let's deploy. Right. And this is cutting it. We've got 30 seconds here on the rest of the stream here. I think we're gonna end this with a nice confetti, but my heart rate went a little bit there. So let's see.
Okay.
Okay.
Cross fingers.
Okay. So here we see 3K. Boom.
Yay.
Yes.
Nice.
Right.
Nice.
That was impressive.
Yay.
Good job, Alex. We did it. We did it. So that's fantastic. So we did 3 things today. One, we refactor a little bit of our code to check for errors. Second, we cache the information to not hit ConvertKit's limit. And then third, we restricted to only be able to call this from our own domains. And I feel like this is so much more production ready. I think the what I ask everyone is, should we have Alex back on the stream? Maybe a part 3. Alex, where would we go from here? What should people kind of think about like, oh, where would they go from here?
I mean, anything, any external data that you would like to show in Webflow, there's always something to do with that. I mean, it could be anything like data tables. I think that you actually had other streams about that, which is nice.
Yeah.
Just having, even just building a small application.
Absolutely.
That's actually the next step. Like, now we're showing some data. Let's now add a new layer of interactivity and not only show the data, but actually update the data on the server.
Absolutely.
So, that becomes not only a show only, a read only website, but actually it's a web application where you can submit data and store it in the server. That would be something nice to do.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
It's a little bit trickier.
I think it'd be cool.
There's more work there.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be cool to, the next step here is if someone submits their email, can we then update ConvertKit in a way that doesn't go through like Webflow, Zapier, right? Can we update that data and see that reflected? But so I will let folks pester you and pester me to have you back on. If you have ideas for what we should cover, you can always let me know. But Alex, it was a true pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for joining us today. And a huge thanks
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, it was a true pleasure. Really thanks. And thanks to Stan, Penny, Colleen, Anthony, Xavier, Penny, so much rock and roll. Whaley, welcome back. Appreciate you all coming to this stream. We'll be back next week with Lola and talking about APIs. Again, Lola just released a resource of over 100 APIs and how to integrate them across different no-code tools. So we'll be back here talking about APIs. But Alex, I hope to see you soon enough. And thanks again for joining.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Have a great week. I'll see you back next week.